Drafted 15th overall, 2 MVPs, 1 championship. For 13 years, Giannis Antetokounmpo was Milwaukee, and now Milwaukee has traded him. Milwaukee's own general manager?
No one's sitting here today and saying that we're a better team today after trading Giannis.
I'm scared that I might never find that ever again. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know the team, but I'm going over there, and I will do my best. That's Giannis Antetokounmpo, talking about the Miami Heat, the team he just got traded to. The same team he told reporters at his own introductory press conference was a no-brainer. So which one is true? Here's everything actually going on underneath this trade. A saga that didn't start in June, it started 13 months earlier. A team Giannis actually wanted first, that isn't Miami. A franchise that lost its head coach and its franchise player in the same 10-week stretch. A general manager who said something almost no GM ever says out loud about his own trade. And a teammate who took nearly a month to say anything about it at all. To understand why any of this matters, you have to go back to where it started. June 27th, 2013. An 18-year-old from Athens, Greece, virtually unknown to NBA scouts, gets his name called 15th overall by the Milwaukee Bucks. He'd been playing in a Greek club league most NBA people had never scouted. He later said getting drafted meant his family would finally have a better life. In his own words, 4 years in sadness and poverty is very difficult. Draft night was, he said, likely the happiest day of their lives. His brother Thanasis stood in the crowd, draped in a Greek flag. That raw, unknown prospect became a 2-time MVP, winning back-to-back in 2019 and 2020. In his first MVP season, he averaged 27.7 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 5.9 assists a game. In 2021, he won an NBA championship and Finals MVP, the first title for Milwaukee since 1971, putting up 35.2 points, 13.2 rebounds, and 5 assists a game against the Phoenix Suns. He's the only player in NBA history to average at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block in a season. And he did it more than once. For 13 years, Giannis Antetokounmpo was the Milwaukee Bucks. Here's the story most people think they know. Late June 2026, on the eve of the NBA draft, Milwaukee traded that same franchise legend along with Bobby Portis to the Miami Heat. In return, the Bucks got 5 players, Tyler Herro, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparas Jakucionis, and Nate Ament, plus 3 first-round picks, a pick swap, and a second-rounder. A blockbuster. Clean, sudden, the kind of headline that reads like it happened overnight. Except that's not actually where this started. Sources told ESPN that Antetokounmpo and his agent had been telling the Bucks he wanted out since May of 2025. 13 months before that draft eve trade actually closed. This wasn't a sudden decision made in one dramatic phone call. It was a slow breakup, playing out mostly behind closed doors, while the public kept assuming everything in Milwaukee was fine. And here's the part almost nobody covering this trade actually leads with. Miami wasn't Giannis's first choice. His camp made it clear the New York Knicks were the team he actually wanted. The Bucks and the Knicks held real trade talks that summer. But by August of 2025, those talks never got traction. No deal got done. And the Knicks weren't the only team already circling. Reporting from back in May of 2025, more than a year before the actual trade, named the Heat, the Timberwolves, and the Warriors as suitors too. Miami had been in this conversation from nearly the very beginning. It just wasn't the team Giannis himself was pushing for. So remember that no-brainer quote from his Miami podium. It was true, it just wasn't the whole truth. While all of this sat unresolved for months, Giannis kept playing through it and his body kept breaking down. A right calf strain in early December, initially 2 to 4 weeks, that stretched into 15 straight missed games. A separate 4-game absence with a left adductor strain, a second calf sprain in late January, 4 to 6 more weeks. Then, in mid-March, a left knee hyperextension and bone bruise that ended his season entirely. 31 games missed in total, out of an 82-game season. More than a third of Milwaukee's year played without its own franchise player on the floor. A star who wanted out, breaking down physically, on a team that was actively getting worse, all three pressures stacked on top of each other at the exact same time. And here's a detail almost nobody connects to this story. Giannis wasn't the only major figure Milwaukee lost that offseason. On April 13th, 2026, head coach Doc Rivers resigned, saying he wanted to spend more time with his grandchildren. Just 17 days later, the Bucks hired Taylor Jenkins, previously the Memphis Grizzlies head coach for 6 seasons, as his replacement. By the time Giannis actually got traded in late June, Milwaukee had already replaced its coach. The franchise lost its 2 most important people in the same offseason, 10 weeks apart. Here's another reason this dragged on so long, and it wasn't only on Giannis' side. Reporting described Milwaukee's own asking price as unrealistic. Horst was asking for returns that would leave whichever team acquired Giannis too thin to actually contend. Boston reportedly couldn't make a deal work without including Jaylen Brown, an all-star in his own right. Minnesota circled back on a package built around Anthony Edwards, but found the price had only gone up. Milwaukee wasn't just waiting on Giannis to decide. Milwaukee was setting a bar almost nobody could clear. So by late June 2026, on the eve of the draft, Miami finally cleared that bar. Milwaukee chose their offer over Boston's for more young talent, more draft capital, and more long-term flexibility. New head coach Taylor Jenkins would inherit a roster built to develop, not to win right now. 13 months of pressure resolved in one transaction. And the 2 players sent to Milwaukee didn't stay quiet about it either. Tyler Herro posted a farewell message to Miami. "Miami didn't just shape my career, it shaped my life." Kel'el Ware, more matter-of-fact about it. "I kind of figured the trade was going to happen. Now I have more of a chance to flourish." Bucks general manager Jon Horst faced reporters afterward, and what he said is not what you usually hear from a GM explaining why he just traded away a franchise legend. "This was not a have to," Horst said. "We truly believed we've found an opportunity which is unique." Then came the line that actually made headlines. "No one's sitting here today and saying that we're a better team today after trading Giannis." To be fair to Horst here, because his full explanation deserves to be heard, not just the blunt headline. He talked about balance, about getting back foundational players he actually believed in, about draft capital he thought Milwaukee could use, either by drafting with it directly or trading it later. About real flexibility to make decisions Milwaukee simply didn't have with one enormous contract locked in. That's not nothing. That's a real basketball argument, made by the one man who actually had to make the call, for a new coach he just hired to build something with. Even people skeptical of the return package agree on one thing. This wasn't Milwaukee panicking into a bad deal. It was Milwaukee choosing a slower, less flashy rebuild over holding on to a superstar who had already told them, more than a year earlier, that he wanted to leave. But here's what makes Giannis's own words the strangest part of this entire story. At the podium in Miami, he sounded certain. "I love pressure. I thrive under pressure. I need pressure." It was a no-brainer. Weeks later, in a far more candid interview, a very different version showed up. "I'm scared of change. I'm scared that the grass is not always greener. People love me here, people respect me here, and I'm scared that I might never find that ever again." Same person, both quotes real, both on the record. And then there's Bam Adebayo, the Heat's own center, now sharing a locker room with a top 5 player in the entire sport. His first public comments on the trade didn't come out for almost a month. Not at the introduction, not at practice. At the ESPYs, nearly 4 weeks later, all he offered was, "Biggest thing is we want to win." That's not nothing either. For a star to stay that quiet, that long, about acquiring a player this big, is its own real reported detail. Reporting around Adebayo does note he'd been yearning for the chance to play next to another genuine superstar again, after his previous years alongside Jimmy Butler ended in real friction. If that's true, his quiet was never about doubt over Giannis specifically. It reads more like a veteran who has learned not to celebrate a superstar arrival out loud until it actually pays off on the court. So where does this actually go from here? The Heat opened their preseason on October 3rd against Toronto in Quebec City, part of the NBA's Canada Games. Giannis Antetokounmpo's very first competitive minutes in a Miami Heat uniform. From there, home preseason games against New Orleans and Minnesota, then Brooklyn before closing out on the road in Orlando. Back in Milwaukee, Taylor Jenkins opens his own first training camp, with a roster built entirely around players who weren't there a year ago, and a front office betting that draft picks and flexibility age better than one aging superstar's remaining prime. Everyone will be watching to see which version of Giannis actually shows up once real games start. The player who called it a no-brainer, or the player who admitted he's scared he'll never find what he had again? 13 months. One franchise legend, drafted at 18 out of a country most scouts never scouted. One head coach replaced along the way. One general manager honest enough to say his own team isn't better for the move he just made. And one player who is still, in his own words, figuring out if he made the right call. The Bucks' championship era, the one built from a poor kid out of Athens into the first title Milwaukee had seen since 1971, is over. Whether Miami's next one actually starts here is the only question left. And right now, not even Giannis sounds sure of the answer.